Hi everyone, I'm Professor Taouil. This semester I'm going to be teaching you Initiation to Translation. I would like you all please to buy this handbook, which is available at the photocopying center outside the faculty. When you leave the faculty and turn to the right hand side, keep walking about 30 meters, you'll find there photocopying center. It's there where you have my handbook in Initiation to Translation. You need to have it because we're going to be practicing and correcting, so it's better to have an organized handbook instead of different handouts. Our lesson today is going to be an introduction, and then we'll try to translate a few sentences from Arabic into English. Later on, we'll keep practicing with sentences until we start lesson 2, where we'll move forward to translating texts. Not really long text, but passages of about 12-14 lines. We'll be practicing from Arabic into English and then from English into Arabic. It's better that you follow the slides I will be showing you now. And on your handbooks, you need to go to the first page in order to write down the answers. As you can see here, you have some gaps that need to be filled. We're going to practice this together today. So please have a look at the slides. So in the introduction on page 1, the first question is, what is translation? When you translate, you can say I am translating or I am rendering. Translation means translating or rendering the meaning from one language into another. So when you translate, you have to be careful. You are not translating word by word, but you have to translate the meaning. For question 2, what do you call the text you translate from? The source language text. What do you call the text you translate into? The target language text. So the source language text is SLT and the target language text is TLT. Why is it called the target? Because it is the target of the translator. It is the aim of the translator. What do you need to be a good translator? You need to be a bilingual. A bilingual means a person who can master 2 languages. You know their grammar, syntax, sentence structure, semantics, etc. You need to use a dictionary. I usually suggest to my students to buy a very useful one called Al-Qamus. It's a bilingual dictionary, which means that you have words from Arabic into English and then from English into Arabic into this dictionary, inside this dictionary. And you also have pronunciation, transcription, general and scientific dictionary of language and terms. It contains scientific terms, mathematical, physical, chemical, etc. So it's very practical for any text type, whether it is literature, science, history, geography. It's very, very useful dictionary. You can find it in the bookstore outside the faculty, just behind the petrol station on the right side. There is a small bookstore that brings this dictionary to my students. So remember, it is called Al-Qamus. Translation is a practical course, so you should keep practicing using your dictionaries. And as you know, you cannot practice translation without dictionaries because you are beginners. So keep using this dictionary, your dictionaries, whenever you are trying to translate any text. And concerning the exams, you are allowed to use the dictionaries in the exams too. You need to know, though, briefly the theory of translation. So, for instance, we have text, context, text types, etc. You must know that a text can be read or listened to. A text can be read is the type of text you will find in, let's say, books, newspaper articles, magazines, And texts to be listened to are, for example, things you hear on the radio, things broadcast on the radio, like a speech given by a political leader or whatever you hear directly from the radio, for instance. You need to know that the text style can be formal. A formal language means a language which is used officially and academically. So you have speeches given by politicians, you have very important articles in politics, you have other many literary genres, etc. And then you have semi-formal language, text on day-to-day issues. There is also another category of style which is informal. Of course, we are not going to be translating any informal styles because they don't represent an English style which is used in literature, etc. So we'll not lose our time on informal styles. We'll mostly be practicing with formal and semi-formal styles. Regarding question 5, what is context? The field the text written or spoken is related to. This is context. It can be an idea, a setting, an event, or a set of facts surrounding a specific situation. Give examples of different text contexts. So you have history, geography, literature, literary criticism, plastic art, cinema, sociology, psychology, tourism, economics, environment, medicine, physics, astronomy, culture, politics, sociopolitics, sports. There are so many types of contexts. Do you believe that language is context sensitive? Yes, language is context sensitive. Why? Simply because it is related to its context. The language in a politician's speech is different from the one used by a TV reporter commenting on a football match, and also different from a journalist's article on economics, etc. So every text has a specific context, and every context has a specific language. Do you believe that language is culture bound? Yes, it is, because it is used according to cultural implications. There are so many types of culture bound words, some of which are translated, like the word Christmas. So Christmas is not the end of the year, but it is Eid Mawlid al-Masih. While others are not translated, like for instance jihad, jihadist, Salafi, Sufi, because they refer to complex cultural phenomena. So they are kept as such in the other languages. We have seen many types of contexts. However, for text types, we'll be working only on 3 types of texts. The expository is when the author is only exposing facts like history, economy, etc. Or argumentative, when the author is arguing. So he has got arguments. It means he is arguing for or against an idea. He's trying to be convincing. Legal texts are related to law, to tribunals. We will not be practicing a lot with legal texts because you are not trainee translators, you are students in the English Studies department, so most of the texts we'll be dealing with will be either expository or argumentative. Now let's move to the exercises. We'll practice firstly sentences into written in Arabic that will translate into English. Find the context for the sentences below, then translate them into English. كان لمسألة العبودية أثر مهم في الأحداث التي سبقت الحرب الأهلية الأمريكية، إلا أنها لم تكن المسألة الوحيدة التي فرقت بين الولايات الشمالية والولايات الجنوبية عام 1860. When you look at this sentence, you will notice that if I ask you what is the context, you will surely tell me it is history, because it has to do with some historic events that occurred in America. And if you look carefully at the sentence, it begins with kana. English is a language which starts with the subject. So this is why grammarians say that in English we have the SVO. It means subject plus verb plus object. However, in Arabic we have the VSO. Sentences start with the verb. So you have the verb first and then the subject. Very, very rarely in Arabic do we find sentences starting by nouns. Probably for emphasis or for, let's say, for literary reasons. When a person is writing a poem, he changes the structures of sentences, etc. But remember that all the sentences you will be translating must start with al-jumla al-fi'liya in Arabic. But in English, you have the subject first. When you translate, the structure of the sentence might change. So the beginning might become the end, and the end might become the beginning. Because we are translating the meaning, not word by word. Also, you will notice here that we have مسألة العبودية. And then you have المسألة repeated again. الولايات الشمالية, الولايات repeated again. And one characteristic of Arabic, when we use the year, we say عام عام 1860. However, in English, we don't need to say in the year 1860. You don't need to say that in English. So, if you look carefully at the sentence again, you will notice that we have إلا أنها. إلا أنها shows the opposition. It is in the middle of the sentence. In English, we can put it in the middle or in the beginning. I have translated it this way. Although slavery had a tremendous impact on the events that preceded the American Civil War, it was not the only factor that separated the northern states from the southern ones in 1860. Now, if you look again, you will notice that مسألة has disappeared. Because you can say slavery issue, or you can just say slavery. And also, we must not say in English the northern state from the southern state. It will be a repetition. So you say the northern state from the southern ones. You have to be careful, and when you translate from Arabic into English, your English must be perfect. You must respect the grammatical rules of the language. Avoid repetitions, and whenever you have words like here مسألة العبودية, you don't need مسألة, you just say slavery. In other contexts, probably when you have مشكلة كذا or موضوع كذا, probably you can keep them, but in this sentence you don't need to. For sentence 2, يعتبر موضوع العلاقات الريفية الحضرية بالمغرب من المواضيع المتجددة من الناحية العلمية بحكم التطور المستمر الذي تعرفه هذه العلاقات بالإضافة إلى ما تكتسبه من خصوصيات محلية وجهوية. This is socio-economy. Here again, you see that the sentence in Arabic starts by the verb يعتبر, and then موضوع من المواضيع. This is a characteristic of Arabic. In Arabic, we have a lot of repetitions. من الناحية العلمية. For me, this word, this من الناحية العلمية, could be at the beginning of the sentence in English. So we can say, scientifically speaking. Now we have العلاقات الريفية الحضرية بالمغرب. We can say the Moroccan rural urban context is regarded as one of the most renewable issues. We don't need to say the topic is one of the issues. It's going to be awkward in English. So we just say the Moroccan rural urban context is regarded as one of the most renewable issues, given its continuous changes as well as local and regional aspects. So try often when you translate, try to seek for the best English you can use. Avoid repetitions and be careful with the form. What is the beginning of a sentence in Arabic might become the end in English, and what is the end in Arabic might become the beginning in English. You can change the form. You just must give us a very good English and avoid translating word by word. جاء في دراسة جديدة أصدرها البنك الدولي أن عدد سكان العالم سيرتفع خلال الأعوام 37 القادمة إلى حوالي 800 ملايير، نسم منها حوالي 90% في الدول النامية. So the context here is economy. And I have chosen to start by, according to a recent survey issued by International Bank, the world population shall increase in the coming 37 years to about 8 billion people, 90% of which in developing countries. You have here some statistics, 8 billion and 90%. You can use them in numbers when you have text like this. Then another one, سبق لوزير الداخلية شارل باسكوا أن تحدث عن تدابير أمنية صارمة ستقدم عليها بلاده من أجل مكافحة الإرهاب. This is purely politics, so the context is politics. The Minister of the Interior Charles Pasqua. So in Arabic we have الجملة الفعلية سبق لوزير الداخلية. However, in English we have to start by the subject. Remember, SVO in English, VSO in Arabic. Has already stated or referred to or mentioned the tough security measures to be adopted by his country in order to counter terrorism. When you look up words in the dictionary I have told you about, Al-Qamus, you will discover that Al-Qamus will offer you maybe 5 or 6 synonyms for one word. Then you have to be careful. You must choose the word which fits the context. This is your task. Don't pick up any word haphazardly. You have to pay attention to the context. بعد أن فازت إنجلترا بكأس العالم، كانت النتيجة المهمة التي ترتبت على ذلك هي نجاح فلسفة الاعتماد على الجهد الجماعي أكثر من العبقريات الفردية. Oh, clearly this is sports. Now, the word فلسفة here, فلسفة الاعتماد, if you translate it by philosophy, it would be wrong. Because here, the writer means فلسفة الاعتماد is the tactique used in sport. So in English, you have to be more, let's say, try to find the best equivalent for this sports context. The important outcome of England's winning the World Cup was that teamwork tactique could be more rewarding than individual skills. For me, this would be a better translation than if you use فلسفة. It's a tactique in sport. في الدار البيضاء يتعايش التمدن مع البداوة ويأكلان من نفس الصحن. سيارات كالصحون الطائرة تسير جنبا إلى جنب مع عربات تجرها الدواب. This is sociology, and this sentence is taken from a text dealing with the contrasts in a big city like Casablanca, the rich areas, the poor ones, etc. And somehow the author here is ironic when you have يتعايشان ويأكلان من نفس الصحن. This is figurative language. When you come across expressions like these, you have to be very careful. So, what does he mean by يأكلان من نفس الصحن? This is personification. He is giving التمدن والبداوة characteristics of humans, personification. And he is doing this just to say that they are coexisting together in a very paradoxical way. They are not eating from the same plate. You have to be careful. Don't translate it as such. So in Casablanca, the urban-rural aspects coexist in such a paradoxical manner. So luxurious cars, سيارات كالصحون الطائرة, means luxurious cars. The drivers can drive them at a very high speed because they are luxurious cars. They are driven side by side with chariots pulled by mules. I'm sure many of us have seen things like this in areas in Casablanca, which is really a big contrast actually. Sentence 7. طرق قدور باب الخيمة ليجد فاطمة تجلس جلستها التقليدية وقد احتضنت بين فخذيها قسعة تفتل فيها الكسكس كعشاء للضيوف. This sentence is taken from a novel by Abdelkarim Ghallab, who is a Moroccan writer, and the novel is called دفن الماضي. When Qaddour knocked on the farmhouse door, Fatna was sitting as usual. Now if you look at the sentence, ليجد فاطمة تجلس جلستها التقليدية. It's not a traditional way of sitting, but it's a habit. It's the way she likes to prepare couscous. She likes to sit down and hold the qas'a and keep twisting the semolina to make couscous as a meal. So she was sitting as usual, holding a large clay dish between her thighs and twisting the semolina to make a couscous dinner for the guests. Translating Moroccan literature is very difficult because you will all the time come across culture-bound words, like here the word qas'a. So to translate qas'a, you have to think carefully of the best way to do it. So you can say a large clay dish, for instance. Okay, so this is a purely Moroccan context. تعتبر number 8 تعتبر شركة أونا من أهم الشركات المغربية كما أنها تخصص مداخلها للمزيد من الاستثمارات. This is purely economy. Ona is regarded as one of the most important Moroccan companies, and it is known for using its incomes for more investment. You can also say Ona is regarded as one of the most important Moroccan companies which uses its incomes for more investments. You can translate it in many ways. Just remember, we translate the meaning. We don't translate word by word. Number 9. لقد ترك ناصر آثاراً عميقة على تاريخ مصر والعرب والعالم عبر قرابة عقدين من الزمن، إذ أنه خلف مشاعر مؤيدة وأخرى معارضة. فبينما يعتبره البعض بطلاً قومياً، يراه البعض الآخر طاغية ومهدداً للسلام ومثيراً للنزاعات الدولية. So the context here is politics. When you translate text like this, you have to be careful. Again, as I told you, look for the adverbs. For instance, here we have عبر قرابة عقدين من الزمن. So this indicates the adverb of time. I prefer to start with it in English, so we say for about 2 decades. Nasser had an everlasting impact on the histories of Egypt, the Arabs, and the whole world. So تاريخ مصر والعرب والعالم. Since he had pros and cons. Pros and cons are people who are for him and those who are against him. For some, he was a national hero. However, for others, he was not only a dictator, but also a peace-threatening and war-mongering figure. We'll go on. This, again, is taken from the same source, same text. لقد كان ناصر أبرز رجل دول فرزه عصر النهضة العربية. كان حقا ثوريا وشخصية مؤثرة في استقرار منطقة الشرق الأوسط. إضافة إلى كل هذا، كان شخصية ريادية في الثورات المناهضة للاستعمار، والتي كانت من أعظم الحركات السياسية العالمية في القرن العشرين. Again, politics. Here, لقد كان ناصر أبرز رجل دولة فرزه عصر النهضة. كان حقا ثوريا. So you can start, for instance, by being the most prominent statesman of the Arab Renaissance. He was genuinely a revolutionary figure with an undiminished impact on the stability of the Middle East. Moreover, he was a leading personality in the anti-colonial revolutions known as the world's most decisive political movements of the 20th century. Pay attention to linking words like إضافة إلى كل هذا ورغم etc. In some context, even if you don't have linking words, if you feel that there is an opposition there between the two sentences, you can use a linking word. That's very important. دعت دراسة متخصصة عربية إلى إحياء فن الحكاوي أو فن رواية القصة للأطفال الذي كانت تقوم به الجدات والأمهات في الأمسيات. Sociology, this is the context. So we can translate it that here. You see that in Arabic the sentence starts by the verb as usual. However, the subject for this sentence is a specialized Arab survey. A specialized Arab survey has urged for the restoration of storytelling, or the art of telling stories, which was a common evening practice for grandmothers and mothers. We'll continue with the same context, sociology. أوضحت دراسة صادرة عن المجلس العربي للطفولة والتنمية أن رواية الحكاوي لم تعد قاصرة على الأمسيات المنزلية، بل أصبحت قسما مشتركا لكل تجمعات الأطفال، بداية من الروضة مرورا بالمكتبات ونهاية بالمعسكرات والرحلات الخلوية في بعض بلدان العالم. Can start, for instance, as it has been highlighted in the survey issued by the Arab Council for Childhood and Development, storytelling has expanded from being a mere domestic evening activity to a common practice within some countries' children's gatherings, including kindergartens, libraries, as well as scouts camps and picnics. One thing I would like to mention to you is one of the differences between Arabic and English is the way they use the plural. Sometimes in some contexts the English favors the plural, however Arabic favors the singular. Like when you say 20 countries, in Arabic we have 20 دولة. Okay, so you will come across things like this in the future. Okay. أشارت الدراسة نفسها إلى أن هذا الفن لا يقتصر على الحكايات الشعبية، الحكايات الخرافية، بل يشمل كل ما أبدع من القصص والقصص المصورة. ونوهت الدراسة أيضا بتعدد وظائف فن الحكاوي من مجرد وسيلة لقضاء أوقات الفراغ أو حكايات قبل النوم إلى المساعدة في نمو الأطفال في كافة المجالات نموا سويا. Sociology. The same study has underlined that storytelling is an art that involves not only popular fancy tales, but also many innovative stories and cartoons. It has also stressed the multifunctional role of storytelling, which can be a spare time activity and a bedtime story at the same time as an enhancing factor in children's evolution. When you copy this and later on when you have some free time, I would like you to read again all these sentences and pay attention to the way I have tried to translate them, respecting first of all the meaning and secondly trying to produce a perfect English, avoiding translating word by word and linking words. Avoid using short sentences. Try please when you translate to link sentences, try to use complex sentences. The last example in this section is a legal context. المرفق السادس، النظام الأساسي للمحكمة الدولية لقانون البحار، المادة 1، أحكام عامة. تتشكل المحكمة الدولية لقانون البحار وتعمل وفقا لأحكام هذه الاتفاقية وهذا النظام الأساسي. يكون مقر المحكمة في ألمانيا. يكون للمحكمة الحق في أن تعقد جلساتها وتمارس أعمالها في مكان آخر إذا ارتأت ذلك. Legal texts are very difficult to translate. They require very specific use of words, and also the form must be respected. So Annex 6, Statute of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. All the words are capitalized. Article 1, General Provisions. The International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea is constituted and operates in accordance with the provisions of this convention and this statute. The seat of the court shall be in Germany. The court shall have the right to hold its sessions and conduct its functions elsewhere if it so desires. So you see we have the use of shall be, shall have. This is very normal in legal texts. We have so far translated sentences from Arabic into English. Now we are going to do the opposite. We're going to practice with translation from English into Arabic. Find the context for the sentences below, then translate them into Arabic. Thanks to the Greek dramatists like Plato and Homer, the most fundamental schools in drama have been established, including comedy, tragedy, and tragicomedy, in addition to many literary genres. The context here is literary criticism. This is different from the sentence where you have عاد قدور إلى الخيمة, etc. That one is taken from a novel, so it is literature. However, this one is literary criticism. It is the analysis of literature. Thanks to the Greek dramatists like Plato and Homer, يرجع الفضل إلى مبدع المسرح اليوناني مثل أفلاطون وهوميروس في وضع أولى لبنات المدارس الأساسية في المسرح، بما في ذلك الكوميديا والتراجيديا والتراجيكوميديا وغيرها من الأجناس الأدبية الأخرى. For the word tragedia and tragicomedia, these are borrowed words. Now they are used in Arabic, but they are normally borrowed from other languages. The right word for tragedia is al-ma'sat, but nowadays literary critics use them as such. They are borrowed from English and they are used in Arabic as such. A tragedia, a tragicomedy, al-comedia, etc. There are so many words borrowed from English into Arabic, and there are so many words in English which are borrowed from Arabic or French or Latin or other languages. Borrowing from one language into another is very normal. You are going to study such phenomena later on when you study linguistics. The EU was established not only to unite politically the European nations and give them strength and sovereignty, but also to protect their common economic interests. The field here, or the context, is politics. So we have in English the EU functioning as a subject. However, in Arabic we have to start by the verb. So لم يتأسس الاتحاد الأوروبي بغرض توحيد الدول الأوروبية سياسيا ومنحها القوة والسيادة فحسب، بل أيضا لحماية مصالحها الاقتصادية المشتركة. Not only, but also, I have preferred to use لم and then فحسب to respect the meaning we have in English and try to translate it as faithfully as possible. In case people are in complex situations requiring courage, they often reiterate Shakespeare's famous sentence, to be or not to be, that is the question, quoted in Hamlet. So this is sociology, because though the quotation is taken from Shakespeare, the sentence has to do with people in difficult conditions. كلما يجد الناس أنفسهم في أوضاع معقدة تتطلب الحزم والشجاعة. Here in Arabic, in English we have only courage. Arabic is a language where you can use synonyms, الحزم والشجاعة. فإنهم غالبا ما يكررون مقولة شكسبير الشهيرة أكون أو لا أكون، هذا هو السؤال، المقتبسة من مسرحيته هاملت. Hamlet is a title, so I have underlined it. Number 4, most Americans admire the cowboys as a symbol of the nation's pioneering spirit. The cowboy represents the values of the young country, expanding its frontiers across the untamed West. Rugged courage, physical strength and skill, and stubborn independence. This has to do with American culture, so the context is culture. For me, a Lincoln word that would express the idea of how Americans have been admiring the cowboys for ages, I have chosen لطالما. لطالما حظي رعاة البقر بإعجاب معظم الأمريكيين لكونهم يرمزون إلى الروح الريادي للأمة وقيم الدولة الفتية التي توسع حدودها عبر الغرب الوحشي. بفضل الشجاعة الجامحة والقوة الجسدية والمهارة والاستقلالية الأكيدة التي تميزوا بها. Here, pay attention to استعمال الواو والقوة والاستقلالية. This is very normal in Arabic. However, in English you cannot say and. And must be kept for the last sentence, like here. Wrecked courage, physical strength, skill, and stubborn independence. Here, physical strength and skill represent one thing. So, and here is for the last sentence. But you cannot say and, because it is not, grammatically speaking, it is not correct. Number 5. Although technology has many advantages, it has unfortunately many disadvantages, such as causing pollution and creating the weapons industry, the most dangerous of which are the nuclear ones, missiles, and mass destruction ones. The context here is technology, it's very clear. Here we have a contrast between advantages and disadvantages. So we can say على الرغم من ما تمتاز به التكنولوجيا من مزايا عديدة إلا أنها لسوء الحظ تمتلك الكثير من السلبيات كالتلوث وصناعة السلاح. ومن أخطر هذه الأخيرة هناك الصواريخ والأسلحة النووية أو ذات الدمار الشامل. Number 6. Bondage, which was a system that granted American farmers a free labor force since the late 16th century, was also the origin of a national problem that separated the northern states from the southern ones, ended up first in the Civil War and then in slavery's abolition. This is history. Okay, so bondage. Here we have bondage, which was so and so and so. Here, look, bondage, comma, which was etc. and then comma was. Here we have in a positive جملة اعتراضية بمعنى أن bondage was also is the sentence. What we have in between the two commas is additional information. Okay, you have to be careful how to translate this in Arabic. So you say, for instance, بالإضافة إلى كونها نظاماً منح العمالة الحرة للمزارعين الأمريكيين في نهاية القرن السادس عشر، كانت العبودية مصدر النزاع القومي الذي أدى إلى فصل الولايات الشمالية عن الولايات الجنوبية، وانتهى باندلاع الحرب الأهلية التي وضعت حداً لها. We have used the sentence here, which is used between the two commas, and started with it. We have used it as التقديم. تقديم is the sentence. But the other part of the sentence we have used it as التأخير. It comes after this one. This is a very usual technique in translation. 7. Surely technology adoption creates more flexible learning opportunities on the one hand and more job opportunities on the other, especially in the specialties requiring the knowledge of sophisticated technological advances. However, while adopting technology tools, we must also adapt them to our reality, infrastructure, institute means, and students' needs. Here the text is not dealing with any type of technology. The text here is dealing with educational technology, the type of technology which is used in education. So when I ask you what is the context, you have to think, read the text and think carefully before putting down the answer. So surely من المؤكد أن تبني التكنولوجيا في التعليم يساهم في خلق فرص تعلم أكثر مرونة من ناحية ومزيد من فرص العمل من ناحية أخرى، خاصة في التخصصات التي تتطلب إلماما بالتطورات التكنولوجية. ومع ذلك يجب علينا أثناء اعتماد أدوات التكنولوجيا أيضا تكييفها مع واقعنا وبنيتنا التحتية ووسائل المعاهد واحتياجات الطلبة. Not all schools, colleges, and universities are prepared for such technologies. This is what the text is dealing with. Actually, this is not only a sentence but a small paragraph. So this paragraph is showing the problem of implementing technology in countries with very low infrastructure. Now, sentence 8. Since the beginning of the 16th century, the Middle East experienced a genuine cultural renaissance. The Renaissance was brought about by the links of trade, politics, and culture between the East and West. The pioneers of the cultural Renaissance sought first of all to promote the use of Arabic, long neglected by the Ottoman Turks, and to make it a suitable vehicle for communication. So this has to do with culture. Now, if you look at this sentence in English, since the beginning of the 16th century, here we have the adverb of time. The Middle East comes after. In Arabic, I would start with the verb. شهد الشرق الأوسط and then put the adverb. منذ بداية القرن السادس عشر نهضة ثقافية حقيقية تبلورت من خلال الروابط التجارية والسياسية والثقافية بين الشرق والغرب. الياء is missing here. Please add it. السياسية والثقافية بين الشرق والغرب. I will put it now. ثقافية. كما سعى رواد هذه النهضة في المقام الأول إلى تشجيع استخدام اللغة العربية وجعلها وسيلة مناسبة للاتصال بعدما عانته من تهميش لفترة طويلة من قبل الأتراك العثمانيين. We want to have a perfect Arabic. Not only translate word by word, but respect the meaning and have a very nice style in Arabic. This is our tasks in translation. The target language must be a nice one. One of the pioneers who turned their attention to the problem of education was Boutros al-Bustani, who was rightly called master and father of the Renaissance. Although he left no specific works setting out his educational theories, they were nevertheless to be found in most of his published books, which deal either with traditional or with modern education. The same context, culture. ومن بين رواد النهضة الذين جذبوا الانتباه إلى إشكالية التعليم هناك بطرس البستاني الذي استحق عن جدارة لقب المعلم وأب النهضة. وبالرغم من كونه لم يترك أي مؤلفات تشمل نظرياته التربوية، إلا أن هذه الأخيرة مذكورة في جل منشوراته الأخرى، سواء تطرقت إلى التعليم التقليدي أو العصري. Okay, the other sentence. Information and communication technologies, ICTs, are the tools used to communicate, create, manage, access, gather, and distribute information, including computer hardware and software, internet, telephones, television, radio, and audiovisual equipment. This is similar to the one we did before. Educational technology is the context here. How to implement technology in education. يقصد بتكنولوجيا المعلومات والاتصال كل الأدوات التي يتم استخدامها من أجل التواصل وكذا خلق وتدبير وجمع وتوزيع المعلومات، بما في ذلك أجهزة وبرامج الكمبيوتر، الحاسوب والإنترنت والهواتف والتلفزيون والراديو والمعدات السمعية البصرية. These are what we call compound words. It is made of two words: audio, visual, سمعية, بصرية, compound words. Established in 1964, Macquarie University is still one of the largest and highly ranked universities in Sydney. Celebrating its 56th anniversary in 2020, after being a rural retreat on the city fringe, it has evolved nowadays into a campus with surroundings beyond recognition. Besides its planning, it is balancing between building and planting. So it comprises multiple buildings and amphitheaters, blocks, at the same time as an artificial lake, rocks, pebbles, and various native plants. Here, you have to be careful. This is not about a university where you have courses and classes, but it is dealing with the architecture and the design of the university. Okay, so you have to read the passage twice to know the exact context. It is architectural design. Okay. تعد جامعة ماكواير التي شيدت عام 1964 بمثابة واحدة من أكبر الجامعات والأرقى تصنيفا في سيدني، والتي تحتفل بذكرى تأسيسها 57 مع حلول عام 2021. فبعد أن كانت مجرد منتجع ريفي بضواحي المدينة، تحولت في الوقت الحاضر إلى حرم جامعي ذا محيط استثنائي. فبالإضافة إلى تصميمها الذي يجمع بين البنايات والحدائق، فهي تضم عدة ملحقات وكتل للمدرجات وبحيرة اصطناعية وصخور وحصى والعديد من النباتات المحلية. This text, the continuity of this text is describing the architecture in all its details. So as you have seen today, translating sentences can be a bit difficult sometimes. It is easier to translate the whole text. It helps you and it guides you to understand the context. However, you can still make an effort and try to guess the context. Please copy this sentence. So today we have seen together the first steps to do a good translation. It's very important to read carefully the sentences. Try to define their context. And then when you translate, you have to select the best word. I mentioned to you earlier that Al-Qamus is a very practical dictionary, so I advise you all to buy it. It's available at the bookstore outside our faculty. So on the right hand side, you keep walking about 30 meters, you will find the photocopying center where you buy the handout, and keep walking after the Shell petrol station, you will find a bookstore which sells Al-Qamus dictionary for my students. I often tell them to get it from that bookstore. So this is all for today. Our lesson next time will be to translate. I think let's see if we'll continue with sentences. Yes, this time we'll move to a bit longer paragraphs. It's not really a big text, but just a small passage. Our practice must be gradual. We'll be moving gradually from one thing into another. Okay, so please all of you get the handout and try to practice at home. Try to translate the maximum you can and keep this blank space for our correction together. Please follow my videos on the faculty site in order to correct all the exercises we have in the handbook. Thank you for your attention.